So good afternoon and thank you for joining us today for the Eagle Mountain Mining Investor Webinar. My name is Jane Morgan and today we are joined by EM2's Managing Director, Charlie Bass, our CEO, Tim Mason, and our Chief Geologist, Fabio Vergara, who will be providing a company update and discussing today's announcements on the strong drill results and the updated mineral resource estimate at the Oracle Ridge Copper Project. To ask a question throughout today's presentation, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Charlie, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Jane. Welcome, everybody, to our webinar. Look, all I want to start off with is, if you know my history, I like finding and creating mines. And in terms of, say, the last 6 months that we've been doing at Oracle Ridge is what I call bang for the bucks. How are we moving this forward? What are we doing? Where are we spending the money? To me, it's about getting everything ready that we need to launch in a feasibility study. So rather than just growing and growing inferred and inferred, we want to know about the measured and indicated resource, which is come out this morning. And to have enough confidence in those resource numbers by turning them into proven and probable, that we could have a moderate size mine running for a decent period of time, 10 years or something like that. We don't know what the costs yet are, but that's part of feasibility and the metallurgical work. So everything we've been doing to date is to get us to this stage of confidence that we can move forward with the metallurgical work, with permitting, with water, with everything else that we have to do to make a mine. Now, that doesn't mean we're not continuing to drill to find more to lengthen the lifetime of this mine. If we start with a moderate sized operation, one, we begin to understand the ore body and the treatment and the different ore types that we're going to encounter. As we do that and we find more, whether at Oracle Ridge or ORX or somewhere else, that's the momentum that we have to really expand the operations. That's the ongoing drilling and exploration. But really the focus, and it's relatively low cost, but it's very technical work that we're moving into now. On that basis, I think what Tim is going to present will show you these kind of things that we've been working towards. So Tim, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks very much, Charlie. Thanks everyone for joining. Look, so what we put out today is a couple of presentations. So one's been on the mineral resource update, and then also on some exploration results. In particular, some really strong results outside the existing resource. I think it's really demonstrating that growth potential of the project. And you know, of course, there's more, and you know, as we're drilling, we certainly do find some more. But as Charlie said, I think we've really got a nice increase in those measured and indicated resource tons, which is really setting us up. It's getting to quite that sizable, that critical mass to be able to really underpin the next stage for us. So there's a few slides here, and I'll go through fairly quickly. But there's certainly that chance to ask any questions at the end. As Jane said, put them in the chat, and we can and address those. So hopefully that you can see that on the screen. Important disclosures there, which are on the ASX. So just before I run into it, I'll just give you a quick bit of background about Oracle Ridge. So Oracle Ridge was last mined in the mid-90s at a pretty modest rate, and then it closed down in 96. Copper was about $1 a pound. And then there was another group that came in, and they did a lot of work around the permitting for us, and some of the backbone work to feasibility studies, which we can leverage off some of that work for sure. The project's located just near Tucson in a belt called the Laramide Arc, which is where you get these big projects, which are surrounded by the majors. So it's that right real estate for large-scale systems. Arizona is a tier 1 jurisdiction where it's second on the Fraser Institute for Investment of Attractiveness. By being the history of production, it really, in our mind, de-risks this project from, we know that it produces a good concentrate, previously, reasonable grinds. We see some really good opportunity to enhance that further, but around permitting, getting road access in there, geotechnical, it ticks a lot of those boxes that it's been a successful mine. But what we've really needed to do, and what we have done, is to build the resources up and to grow the quality, and therefore de-risking that restart of the business. There's a really nice ESG focus for us as well. It's a big focus for us as we're moving into these studies, but I'm not going to talk about that in this presentation. I just want to focus really on what we've announced today. So what we've done is we've drilled 95 new holes. So that represents an extra 14% more holes compared to what was in the resource previously. And what that's done is it's increased the measured and indicated by 12%. Now we've currently got 65%. So 2/3 of our resource is in the measured and indicated category. So that's pretty significant. So nearly 11 million tonnes there. And interestingly, at our project, which is not what you always see at other projects, is that at a slightly lower cutoff grade, there's 36% more metal. So not more tonnes, there's 36% more metal at those lower cutoffs. So, that's a real play on where copper prices are going to go. And, the analyst forecasts, again, I'm not going to go to copper forecasts and markets, but geez, we're at an interesting stage of the market, I think, where, I'm not hearing people not being really quite bullish about the copper market, but just where we're at right now, the copper, it's come off from where it was in the highs. But our view is that it's certainly got some decent upside there. This resource was largely done in-house, but we got, once again, SRK to sign off on it as a peer review, so to give that confidence as well. So as it stands, we've got 240,000 tonnes at about 1.5% copper, 8 million ounces of silver and 100,000 ounces of gold. Now that silver and gold historically was payable in the concentrates. They previously sold it to Glencore, and that added, depending on the copper price and the grades coming through, about 15 to 20% more value compared to the straight copper. So it was recoverable and it was paid. So the silver and gold is certainly significant. And interestingly, a lot of certainly what we've seen recently is that some of the gold grades have been quite decent compared to the holistic resource as well. So we're still drilling with a focus to continue to upgrade the resources. Now, with some of this drilling, we've had some great results that we've put out today in both. These results here outside the existing resource have got some really decent thickness and some good grades. So 12 metres at 3% copper, 1.5 ounce silver and 0.5 gram per tonne gold. There's some cracking results there, and you get these high grade zones in there too, which are pretty spectacular. Up to 16-17% copper over these massive bornite zones stringing through too. So great results coming through, and I guess this is really demonstrating that potential, that there's certainly more to find here. As you drill more, you find more basically. This is the existing resource. You can see, so 2/3 of 10.8 million tonnes of the 16.5 is now in the measured and indicated category. So that's quite significant. In terms of the grade, now this is pretty interesting, that inferred grade going to 1.36 for copper, indicated is at 1.49, and then measured at 1.57. Many projects that I've seen, often occurs the other way. As you drill more and you increase the confidence, sometimes your grade can drop, but we're not seeing that. So that's a great confidence booster for us. So you can see that's the same for the silver, and then the gold is now up to 0.21. So that gold certainly increased in terms of the grade compared to the previous resource too. This is what I was saying at the different cutoff grades. At a 1% copper cutoff, so not a copper equivalent, at a copper cutoff, 16 million tonnes of 1.45, so that gives us 240,000 tonnes of contained copper. You drop that cutoff grade to 0.8, we're up to 26 million tonnes. So, if you like the tonnes, we've got tonnes. There's no doubt about that. We've got tonnes there, 320,000 tonnes of copper. And again, if you go down to 0.6, it's materially higher again. So what's the right cutoff grade for what this project is? Well, that's a really good question. We've reported it at 1%, but that comes down to views on copper, and we will pull that apart to where the value is in terms for the future mining studies, because that's what you've got to mine it for value. You're not mining just to get grade or to tons. You're mining it to optimize value in your project. In terms of the growth of our measured and indicated resources, back in December 20, we had 6.6 million tonnes. We've now grown that up to 10.8. So that's 64% increase in the measured and indicated resources. So as Charlie was saying, spending money to add value to this project, and I reckon this is a great slide to be able to demonstrate that. This slide here, I am going quickly, I know, but I want to give people the opportunity to ask any questions that they want. Shows where the existing development is. So there's two portals through there and through here. It's different colours that you can see are the different categories of the resource that we've now defined. We're into the underground. So what's great about this project is you can go through the existing underground mine, and there's some photos on other presentations where you can go through. The ground conditions are absolutely fabulous. There's some of this daily mine down here is flooded, but largely most of this you can go through, which is absolutely a great asset for the restart of the project. We're currently drilling around this daily mine here, where there's outcropping copper mineralisation. It was a high-grade project, and as you can see, it doesn't connect to the existing resource. We've done a lot of work around our geological model, and we're getting more excited about the opportunities around some of these historic mines, which we're going to drill. From a targeting perspective underground, we're currently sampling from the existing underground drives. We've got 4 kilometres of outcropping mineralisation in the drives, and then this will be leading into about underground drilling, which is at this stage is focusing on mostly around this southern section where we can upgrade our inferred up to indicated, and you can already see there's some indicated there, which we'll be able to get up into the measured category as well. But the resource is largely around a lot of the existing development. So that's, again, it's a great asset. And that from drilling from underground is far, far more efficient than drilling from surface. It's shorter hole lengths, it's more accurate. So you bang for our buck from underground is great. The refurbishment from underground is going really well. We're doing that as we speak. We're giving the underground fan a birthday. The genset's installed, the fuel tanks are installed. We're running services. We're getting the sumps back up and running. Electricals all had a birthday. There's a mine centre there with changing out the breakers and things like that. So it's progressing really well, which is good to see. So what we've really learned from this resource update is a significantly improved geological model. I'll address this up front. I know some people go, well, the total tonnes that in our resource hasn't increased. Indeed, it's actually gone backwards a small amount. And there's a few key reasons for that. And one of them is the natural upgrade of the inferred up to indicated. Well, that leaves a bit of a hole there. And we've updated the geological model. We've drilled more holes. In some areas where we thought that there was mineralisation extending, we've put some holes into it and we've modelled it. We've seen that there's been some intrusions that have come through or that it wasn't there. But that said, we've had some spectacular results, but it didn't quite backfill to get back to where we were. But that said, it's given us a lot more confidence and a lot more understanding of, especially around the Talon, where there's some great target areas. And these results that we've put out today, I think, really demonstrate that there's more to find there, and we're improving our understanding of the geology materially. Currently got 13 holes still pending. So this is, I guess, just an example. I don't go into detail, but you can see where previously this dotted line here is what had been interpreted as the lower contact. There wasn't much drilling, back previously. And now as we put a whole bunch more holes into it, we're really understanding where this contact sits. And we're understanding that these contacts and where these intrusions come through have a big impact on where the mineralisation can be. We do see small amounts of mineralisation in the leatherwood, but typically it's very thin and very, very high grade. It's more what sits above the contact, which is where we get those big thickness for the mineable areas. Again, here's another section through it where we're still we're finding more mineralisation as we put down more holes from the, So in terms of the timeline and where we're currently and what we're focusing on, where we're moving forward to, we're refurbishing the existing underground miners. That's going really well, which is great. Underground sampling to collect bulk samples for the metallurgical test work. And that's going to really help. We see some opportunity to optimise that. We do see some variability in the skarns, but it'll also really help design the processing plant that we need to as well. You can see here we've got the October JORC update. That's what we've just put out today. And we're getting going on metallurgical test work that I just spoke about. Underground drilling is a big focus for us. We've got a really exciting opportunity called Oryx. I'll run through that in a second. Some of you already know about it, but we're also commencing a lot of the permitting then as well. Some of this permitting work, we've got a team working on the permitting, and some of that's actually largely started now. Some of that's around securing the water that we need. We're quite confident that we'll be able to secure that necessary for the future processing plant. What we inherited when we picked this project up was that some of the key permits that we need for a modest-sized operation that we've got. And a key one for that is an air quality permit issued by the Pima County. So that air quality permit is something that we've got, and we can potentially expand it later on. Another key permit we need to get going on will be around permitting for the tailings dam. So we need to start working on that. We've got a couple of different options, but we've got some of the best people in Arizona to help us out on that front. So that's the forward work program. I just want to touch on one of the, I guess some of you probably know about this, but this is an area called Oryx. And what you get around Arizona is you get mineralization here and here and here, and then they have like a hub and spoke type of operation. That's what you get down around Twin Buttes and Mission project. And whilst we're in the area, this is exactly what we've seen. Outcropping mineralization outside the existing resource, and this is a pretty exciting one. So this is some examples of what that is. This one here is around the Daly mine, which is an area which we're currently drilling. So you can see it oxidizes on the surface, but this is typically nearly all sulfide that we've got, makes a great concentrate. In terms of the concentrate, and in terms of the, I can probably give you a bit of an update on that as well, as we're talking with offtake partners now, the usual suspects, and they're all pretty excited about trying to get their hands, because it historically made a really nice high grade quality concentrate, so it was always great for the smelters. So that photo here, which I just showed you, this is along this orange line that you can see here, which is an outcropping mineralization at the bottom of the intrusion. We flew magnetics over here. A lot of our mineralization is associated with magnetite. We've seen a big conductive zone dipping back towards the project here, 3 kilometres by 2 kilometres. So we're currently waiting on permits to go and drill that. And as soon as we get those permits, we'd look to go and drill that project. We're pretty excited about Oryx opportunity for that growth scale of the project. Look, in summary, what we've presented here today, I think we're showing that we're spending the money wisely to build and upgrade the resources. I think we all agree that copper is in demand. I'd be surprised if anyone has an alternative view in the long term, especially for that. This project's got that history of production, so it's de-risked largely from metallurgical, geotechnical, all those sorts of things. We've got that low emission potential. We've got existing infrastructure. You can go up, you can touch the ore body, so we don't have that big capital hurdle from the mining perspective for the restart of the project. And we're in the right geology, and it's a Tier 1 jurisdiction. So it's all very quick. I know. If Fabio, have you got anything to add? Unless you want to, I probably missed a bunch of things in this presentation. Otherwise, we can. People might have some questions as well.
we encourage shareholders and webinar attendees to send through any questions via the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. We've had a few that have come through, Tim, so let me jump into them. So how deep are these latest intercepts, and as the depth of the holes isn't mentioned in the announcement highlights?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. So what we've got at Oracle Ridge is we've got topography, which is great from a mining perspective because we can use gravity later on, but it does make some challenges for drilling. So the holes are generally about 200 to 400 metres. We don't put them on the highlights for the simple reason that it could be a bit misleading. We've got 2 portals that go in, and a lot of these, if we put a portal in around the talent, or if we connect it through, it's effectively at ground level. So whilst they might be a few hundred metres long, they're kind of effectively at ground level, if you know what I mean. And indeed, some of these holes that we've been drilling, because we'll drill a pad up here, because we can't put pads everywhere, we've got to limit that. You're kind of drilling down, dip, but it might only be 100 metres away from surface. So they're actually closer to the surface than the length of the hole. So, but we do put the hole links in the announcement, obviously, but it's we're drilling from up here to where the resource is sitting, effectively where the portals are. Often.
Thanks, Tim. Just another one. So where at Oracle Ridge are we currently drilling?
Yeah, currently, Fabio, I've answered lots of questions. Do you want to chime in with what we're currently drilling?
Yep. Yeah, no worries. So we're currently drilling, if you remember the slide where Tim was pointing to the daily mine. So we're trying to find extensions to that historical operation there. And what is also interesting about that area is that was never previously included in the resource estimates. And actually the block model, so the model that was developed to estimate the numbers themselves, didn't actually extend all the way there. So what we're doing, we're trying to join the gap between the daily mine that you see there and also the Gizman mine that is just to the north. We want to see if there's mineralization that is continuous between the two. And maybe while we talk about this, another focus going forward in terms of potential extension of the resource of the mine, clearly we want to test extensions to known mineralization, because there's clearly a lot of unclassified resources that we want to test. And also the other thing is we are starting to understand that there's some other controls on mineralization. So sometimes at the mine we see structures, just faults that run through the sediments that are really strongly mineralized, and some of the historical stopes seem to have been following these structures as well. And we just don't see many of them, or let's say we don't understand where they sit, especially in the southern part of the mine, in the talent. And I think going forward, that could be another focus for our exploration effort, to try to build the resource base, essentially.
Thank you, Fabio. And just more so, can you please step us through some of the feasibility work that you're focusing on?
Yeah, I can probably step through some of that. So, first of all, we're talking with some of the off-takers as well. So we've having meetings with probably the typical groups. Previously, they sold the product to Glencore, but there's other groups there, Traffic, Eurotransmin. So making sure that the right product, and they're very keen for that side of things. There's some early stage discussions around what financing requirements would be and how that might look. We're getting going on the metallurgical test work that we spoke about, and that's got a real few fronts to it. A, optimising recoveries that you need to do, but B, is there other products in there that could have byproduct credits or add value to. So there's a lot of work there, and then that's going to really then flow on to optimising the processing plant that we speak. The other part is around about the permits. Again, we've got key permits for, or certainly one of the big key permits for a modernised operation. So we're working through the balance of what we need from the permitting side, and then also around making sure we can secure water. Now, it is really good that we've got a lot of that kind of already in place. One of the other key permits we've got is around access. Get in. So make sure we can get the product out there, and various agreements along the access route up to the project are largely secured too. So that's probably the key things. Ongoing mine planning studies will continue to evolve as well. But what we really like seeing is that base load of measured and indicated resources is really starting to underpin that as it's as getting to that critical mass.
Thanks, Tim. Just another one that's popped up. So how many meters are we planning and what is the drilling budget for Oryx?
Yeah, Fabio, do you want to?
I can take that. So essentially, these are pretty rough numbers, primarily because Oryx is a new area. We haven't drilled there. We have an understanding of sort of the depth of the drilling and the targets, but we'll probably play it by ear. So on a hole by hole basis, we'll try to make an assessment. But in terms of rough numbers, we're looking at 20 to 30 holes with probably an average depth around 350, 400 meters. Some are a bit deeper, some are a bit shallower, but I think that gives you a bit of an understanding of the general drilling program that we're planning there. But as I said, we want to we want to drill there and make an assessment as we go along, because it's a bit different from the mine area where we had a pretty solid understanding of the geology and we knew what the targets were. At Oryx, it's really an pure exploration play. So we need to know what we find or see what we find before make the next decision, essentially.
Thank you. Just another one, continuing with the drilling. So when do you expect to commence underground drilling and what level of cost saving will this provide versus above ground drilling?
I can probably answer that one if you want, or you can add in Fabio too. So the underground drill, first phase is we've got to make sure the underground's safe and make sure that we've got, the fans are all working and everything's on that front is okay. So we're going to get that stuff sorted, then we'll be able to make a decision on when we actually get into the underground drilling. But that underground work is progressing really well, which is nice. Sorry, Jane, just remind me, what was the other part of the question? So that was when we start, and then what was the
cost saving as opposed for below ground as opposed to above ground?
Oh, okay. Well, it's effectively you kind of get two holes for one. So you kind of it's on a dollar per intercept basis. It's effectively half because it's the whole length's a half basically.
Can I jump in? There's actually more availability for drilling underground, as we've seen the last couple of years. There are a lot of weather events, whether it's lightning and you have a rig with a steel mast sticking up in a lightning storm, everybody skedaddles. So how long does that put you down for? We have some torrential rains, the monsoons, that we may have snow and a rare snow. So a lot of the weather events actually affect their drilling quite a bit. You drill from underground, you don't have any of that.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Charlie.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Just a few questions on Golden Eagle. So Tim, perhaps you want to just give a bit of a view on this?
Yeah, I'll give you a quick one, and Fabio can also chime in as our chief geologist. So Golden Eagle, just remind other people, is a target area that we saw, we're saying a little bit away, a few kilometres away from the main mine area. It's got a very different geology, and it's got quite a large outcropping alteration system. And when we saw that, and it's never been drilled, we got pretty excited. We've drilled 13 holes into it. It's fair to say that, we haven't hit the, any kind of mother lode, obviously, there, but there is some very interesting geology, and we're getting some experts in to assist us in trying to understand what does this mean. You don't get these alteration systems, and you certainly follow them up. You don't get these alteration systems everywhere, that's for sure. And when you're in the right neighbourhood for large prospective projects, and you got these, you do follow them up. Fabio, do you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, I think that was a good summary, Tim. So I think, as Tim was saying, the geology is a bit different from Oracle Ridge. So we're not expecting to find sort of skarn-hosted copper mineralization. But we do see two key styles. One is more gold-rich, and another one is still base metals, but we don't see the sort of the massive accumulation or semi-massive that we see at the mine. So essentially, we're still following up. We're doing additional mapping in the coming months. We have a geophysical survey planned as well, and trying to build sort of the understanding of the area and decide where we want to chase essentially the vector that we see there. From the work we have done, there seems to be a strong increase in alteration and also mineralization as we move east to west. So we just need to improve our understanding of this trend, and then decide later on, maybe next year, if we want to pull the trigger and do some deeper drilling in that area as well.
Okay, and we've just got another a question that's popped up. Sorry. So, what's your view on the copper market? I'll probably even open up to the three of you, but Charlie, perhaps if you want to go first.
I guess you should be an investment banker to talk about this, but I guess I've always been a copper bug almost my whole life, and because of that, you look at where production has been over the last 50 years. The size of the mines, the depth of the mines, the costs, the political issues that are happening in South America and Africa. And to me, I don't know what the price is going to be, but I mean, all the pundits are saying, and I absolutely totally agree, that in about we'll see in 2 to 3 years, balancing, maybe even a shortage of copper. And that shortage is they're saying could grow for 5 or 10 years beyond. That's why we're pushing really hard for this feasibility study to get us enough resource to be confident that we can mine through when copper is supposed to be hitting its straps, not at the end of it, but to take advantage at the beginning of it.
Thanks, Charlie. Tim, anything to add there?
I think Charlie sums it up pretty well. Look, I've got it. There's a lot of, countries now and companies, all putting out these zero emission targets, and it relies on copper. Electrification, copper is the metal of electrification. There's no doubt about it. And it does beg the question about where it's all going to come from. These big projects take so long to come online. They're saying if the copper market, is going to go from 25 million tonnes up to 50, by 2030, 2023, so double, that's a huge amount. We consider that Escondida is the world's biggest copper project by a factor of 3, and it's producing about 1.4 million tonnes of copper. We need multiple Escondidas to come online. So look, I personally agree, and and certainly then you come to the US, you got states like California have now come out saying no combustion engine cars by, I think it's 2030 or 2035, whatever it is. But it's those sorts of targets are going to put a pretty rapid requirement to produce copper. Obviously, they'd love to produce it in country as well.
Thanks, Tim. Look, gentlemen, I think we have covered most of the questions here. I might just reach out again just to ask for any final thoughts or comments and what sort of shareholders can look forward to over the next sort of 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, who can? Do you want to go with that one, Charlie? Or I don't mind.
I'll leave that to you.
Sure. Okay. No worries. Look, we're really excited by Oracle Ridge. We're continuing to drill, and we're demonstrating that we're getting results. And I think we're demonstrating we're spending our money wisely to build and upgrade the resource. I think these 2 announcements we put out today are both demonstrating that are pretty exciting. There's a lot of work coming forward in front of us. The team's working really well. I think we've got a right project with great attributes, and we're heading into the right cycle of the commodity of the copper market as well.
Wonderful. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, and thank you all for joining us for the Eagle Mountain Mining Investor Webinar. Should we have missed any questions, please feel free to reach out via the contact details on the bottom of the ASX releases. But thanks again.
Thanks, Jane.